Lucy was tricked by her scumbag boyfriend into delivering a package to a local crime boss. She assumed the box contained ordinary, everyday items, but when it was opened, she found 4 packets of CPH4 inside. Lucy was knocked unconscious without warning. When she groggily came to, she realized her abdomen had been cut open. At the same time, 3 other people had undergone the same procedure. They would all be shipped out across the world by the crime boss. The plan was to sell CPH4 as a new drug on the black market. But during transport, Lucy caught the eye of a thug. He started groping her without hesitation.
I'm not in the mood.
The creep licked his fingers, then punched her straight to the ground. He followed up with a brutal series of kicks to her stomach. His buddy, afraid things were going too far, dragged him away. But Lucy's condition was already critical. Her abdomen had started bleeding. It was clear the CPH4 packet inside her had ruptured. The tiny granules were rapidly spreading through her abdominal cavity. They exploded and surged through her like lightning. After flooding her abdomen, they began overtaking every blood vessel in her body, until they reached her brain. The blue granules sent Lucy into full body convulsions. Slowly, she began to defy gravity itself, floating in midair. Before long, Lucy had absorbed half a packet of CPH4. Her brain capacity had unlocked to 20%. When she came back to consciousness, her eyes were sharper and more piercing than ever. Her reaction speed had become frighteningly fast. Soon another thug burst into the room. But Lucy didn't flinch. She flashed a seductive smile and spread her legs. The thug took the bait. Just as he moved in, he was instantly taken down before he could even react. Lucy grabbed a nearby pistol and prepared to go on a rampage. The thugs outside had no idea death was already at their door. Lucy walked out of the cell. In one swift motion, she took out every single thug in the room. She then sat down at the table and started eating. Days of captivity had left her absolutely starving. Only after eating her fill did she notice she'd been shot in the shoulder. Felt no pain. She dug the bullet out with her bare hands. Then she grabbed her weapons and headed out onto the street.
Hey, speak English?
No.
Ah! You speak English?
Yes.
Take me to the hospital now.
Inside the car, Lucy seemed to sense something. Her body had undergone some kind of evolution. She could hear other people's phone conversations from a distance, and zoom in on objects hundreds of meters away at will. Lucy arrived at the hospital shortly after. Chinese signs were instantly translated to English in her mind as she scanned them. She burst into the operating room with a gun, and demanded the surgeon remove the CPH4 from her abdomen. She then realized she had to track down the remaining CPH4 fast. Without it, once what was inside her ran out, she would die. So she stormed the crime boss's base alone. The boss had no idea the Grim Reaper was already closing in. By the time Lucy had already fought her way to his front door, she unloaded rounds into the gate to take out the hitmen hiding behind it. She then found the crime boss mid-treatment in his chair. Even with his hands pinned through, the crime boss refused to give up the location of the CPH4. He glared at her with pure hatred. Getting nowhere with questions, Lucy pressed both hands against his temples. She intended to extract what she needed directly from his memory neurons. It didn't take long before Lucy found the whereabouts of the other 3 carriers.
Berlin. Paris. Rome.
With the information she needed, Lucy turned and walked away, leaving the crime boss alone in his base, screaming in furious rage. Back home, Lucy was deeply curious about her own evolution. In just 2.5 seconds, she had absorbed every paper written by the world's leading neuroscientist, and hacked directly into his television. The professor was completely baffled. Lucy got straight to the point. She had taken a massive overdose of CPH4. Her cells were now multiplying at a staggering rate. Her brain had already reached an incredible 28% capacity. The professor couldn't believe what he was hearing, but Lucy proved it with cold hard results.
Television. Telephone.
Well.
Radio.
It's amazing.
Yet despite gaining these unbelievable powers, Lucy felt no joy, because she could feel her human qualities slowly fading away. She could no longer feel pain, fear, or desire. She had already foreseen she wouldn't survive past 24 hours. She didn't know what to do. She asked the professor to point her toward a purpose. He gave her just one answer: pass all knowledge on to humanity. Something clicked for Lucy the moment she heard those words. She decided to do something no human had ever done in her final hours. She arranged to meet the professor in 12 hours. But before that, she still needed to recover the remaining CPH4. The problem was she was now wanted across the entire city. So upon arriving at the airport, she used her abilities to alter her hair and appearance. She then called Interpol and tipped them off. 3 international fugitives were about to land in their jurisdiction. She told them to make sure all 3 were apprehended. Interpol acted on the intel and successfully detained the targets. Meanwhile on the plane, Lucy was running 2 laptops simultaneously, absorbing the entirety of human knowledge at breakneck speed. But she soon noticed something was wrong. As Lucy took a sip of champagne, she spotted one of her own teeth sitting at the bottom of the glass. Before she could make sense of it, her hand began dissolving like powder. It was clear the CPH4 inside her had been completely used up. Her life was now on a countdown. She didn't care who was watching. She bolted straight for the restroom. The flight crew tried to stop her. Lucy knew this moment could not be witnessed by anyone, but her body continued dissolving like ash. She quickly pulled out the remaining half packet of CPH4 and began consuming it desperately, trying to reverse the disintegration taking over her body. After frantically swallowing everything she had, her appearance finally returned to normal. But before she could even feel relieved, her body started dissolving again. She could only watch helplessly as she faded into nothingness. When Lucy came back, her brain capacity had hit 50%. The half packet she had just consumed had pulled her back from the edge. But as she changed clothes and prepared to leave, the officer who had helped her noticed she had slipped out of her restraints. The chief immediately raised his gun, ordering her to freeze. But what he witnessed left him completely stunned. He had no idea what kind of person she even was. Lucy didn't waste any words. She told him flat out she needed the location of the remaining CPH-4. The chief had no choice but to tell her. Inside the vehicle, Lucy saw countless colorful threads of light. These were the communication lines running through the entire city. After filtering through them one by one, she pinpointed the signal she was looking for. The crime boss was sending his men to the hospital to steal the remaining 3 batches of CPH-4. Lucy had to get there first, but the hospital was still dozens of kilometers away. Ignoring the chief's protests, she instantly shoved him into the passenger seat, then floored it. With her superhuman brain in full gear, Lucy cut through traffic like a razor. Not even oncoming lanes fazed her. The chief was gripping the handle for dear life, but Lucy kept the gas pedal buried, tearing through tunnels at insane speeds with zero regard for traffic laws. Even so, the gang's men had already arrived at the hospital. They had killed every officer on guard, successfully extracted 3 packets of CPH-4 from the carriers. Just as they were about to leave, Lucy arrived just in time.
Give me the case.
이거 파우치 가져와.
By this point, Lucy's brain had surged to an astonishing 60%. The lieutenant who tried to escape through the back door walked straight into a glass wall. He stood there completely dazed. Before he could figure out what happened, his men's guns were ripped off them and slammed to the ceiling. But the lieutenant still wasn't backing down. He ordered his crew to take her out. His men had no choice but to push forward despite everything. But before their attacks could even reach Lucy, an invisible force pinned them all to the ceiling. Lucy was now operating on a level that was essentially godlike. These clowns never stood a chance. She dismantled the entire crew in seconds. Only the lieutenant remained. Under Lucy's gaze, his body locked up completely. He had no choice but to hand over the CPH-4, grinding his teeth in absolute fury. Just like that, Lucy had secured every last packet of CPH-4 without breaking a sweat. But there was still one promise left to fulfill. She needed to find Professor Norman and pass everything she knew on to all of humanity. Professor Norman had used his connections to bring together the world's top scientists and most renowned academics from across the globe. But none of them believed Lucy's brain had truly reached 60%.
Your daughter, Gabrielle, age 6, died in a car accident. It was a blue car, leather seats, plastic bird hanging from the rearview mirror.
When the human brain reaches 60% capacity, you gain control over every single cell in your body. You can shift your appearance at will. She stated that 1 + 1 has never equaled 2. Math is simply a system humans invented to make sense of a universe that doesn't actually run on numbers. The room full of elite scientists sat there completely lost. If math doesn't govern the world, then what does? Lucy answered by conjuring a projector out of thin air. Inside it, a car accelerated infinitely. When it reaches a certain velocity, it ceases to exist. So time is what proves matter exists. Without time, none of us would exist either. The professor had an awakening hearing those words. But at that moment, the crime boss had already stormed the lab. Every security guard on site was gunned down. Lucy heard the shots and knew there was no more time to waste. She ordered the professors to inject all remaining CPH-4 directly into her body, to push her brain to 100%. Lucy took a deep breath as every last drop of CPH-4 was absorbed. The substance surged wildly through her system. Then she unleashed what could only be described as an atomic breath blast. The old professor stood there wide-eyed, unable to process what he was seeing. When Lucy opened her eyes again, her brain had already reached 70%. Her arms began rapidly crystallizing, transforming into a dark liquid. It spread across every piece of equipment in the lab, drawing in their energy to fuel the final push. Soon every machine in the lab had been fully absorbed, and Lucy's brain successfully reached 80%. With a single thought, she instantly transported everyone into a white void. And there, she built an unprecedented supercomputer from scratch. Lucy stored everything she knew inside it, a gift to all of mankind. The old professor was absolutely awestruck. By now Lucy's brain had hit an incredible 90%. But the battle outside was escalating rapidly. One of the gang's men slid in and fired a rocket that blew the lab doors wide open. Lucy translocated directly to Paris. Then with a single thought, she stood before the ocean. Then Times Square. She looked around at this unfamiliar world and let out a long sigh. Then she raised her hand. Time froze completely. Lucy silently observed the world for a moment. Then with her left hand, she sent time flying forward. With her right, she reversed it. The ordinary girl she once was came flooding back to her, and tears filled her eyes. She didn't pause. She let time race backward at full speed. The technology around her visibly degraded before her very eyes. In an instant she was in the industrial age. She didn't linger, and let time rewind even further. Thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years passed in a blink. She arrived in the tribal era, but it didn't hold her attention. She waved her hand and jumped to the age of dinosaurs. The dinosaurs here were way too aggressive. With another thought, Lucy leaped back to the primordial era. There stood the first human on Earth, also named Lucy. She was fascinated by this ancient being before her. Lucy reached out a finger in a gesture of friendship. After a moment of hesitation, the ancient human stretched out hers too. But the moment they touched, Lucy left the Earth behind entirely. She plunged into the depths of the cosmos. Time was still rewinding at full speed. She witnessed the very first sunrise. The Earth began spinning rapidly under its light. She lived through a cataclysmic disaster, countless meteors slamming into the planet. But the Earth did not die. It was reborn through the catastrophe. As the camera slowly pulled back, Lucy's brain reached 99%. She arrived in the star-filled expanse of the universe. She saw countless colorful meteors streaking by, wormholes pulsing with raw power, space stations beyond the edge of the known universe. Her consciousness began transcending galaxies. Her cells rapidly merged together. Black liquid began slowly enveloping Lucy. Then the crime boss broke through the last line of defense and burst in. The moment he pulled the trigger, Lucy's brain finally hit 100%. Lucy vanished into thin air. The crime boss was absolutely livid. At that critical moment, the police chief arrived just in time. After the crime boss went down, the The supercomputer Lucy had left behind began to stir. The liquid slowly extended outward. It handed the old professor a USB drive. The moment he touched it, the entire supercomputer crumbled to dust. Inside was the sum of all human knowledge, and the meaning of what lies beyond the universe.
Where is she?